In this video, I'm going to be going over project part 1, part 3, and also how to save and submit your project. Okay, so here's our project. Hopefully you already have part 1 and part 2 completed with the 2 previous lesson videos. And today we're going to be focusing on part 3. So on part 3, we have the same scenario. Okay, so Jade and Juliet, they're still riding their bikes. They're still going 62 miles per day, and their whole trip is still going to be 2,878 miles. We want to know how many more days do they need to ride. And we should have solved for that in part 2. For part 3, we want to solve this problem using a few different ways. Okay, and here it says for part 1, create a graph, table, or diagram to determine how many more days Jade and Juliet need to complete their trip. So here I have a table that I started for you. So I have filled out a few of these, and I've added these blanks down here for you to fill out. Now you do not have to complete the table, but I would suggest it just because to me it's a bit easier since it started, and I'm going to go over how to fill out the rest of it. Okay. Now if we think to, let me grab a little thing where I can write some stuff. Okay. So if we think back to the equation that we wrote in the first part, let me grab my pen really quick. The equation that we wrote in our first part was 62x plus 101.7 equals 2,878. Okay. Now if I'm looking at this table here, these values on the left-hand side, these are going to be what I am substituting for x. So if I look at this first one here for 0, if I take 0 and replace that where x is here, I would have 62 times 0 plus 101.7. Whoops, that's not what that is it? Whoops. Okay, I'm going to leave off this at the end. I don't technically need that right now. And 62 times 0, well, that's just going to be 0 plus 101.7, and that's going to give me 101.7. So that's how I got this over here. That's how I got this. Okay, so let's look at what happens if we replace this 0 with the 1, right? The next value on our table is a 1 underneath the 0 over here. Is 1. So 62 times 1 is 62. And I'm going to add that to 101.7. If I were to type this into a calculator to double check, since I'm using decimals, I would get 163.7. That is how I got this number here. Let's double check it one more time with the 2. Right? The 2 is the next number in our table. I don't know why I deleted that, but that's okay. I'll just rewrite it. Right, the 2 is the next number in my table here. So I'm going to take 62 and multiply it by 2. 62 times 2 is going to be 124. And I'm adding this to 101.7. When I add these two together, I get 225.7. So that is how I get this number here. Okay, I'm going to show you one more, and that's going to be the 3. Hopefully by now you're starting to see the pattern and what you do to solve for the rest of these. Let me get rid of this 2 and replace it with the 3. Okay, so I have 62 times 3. Now don't forget, you can type this into a calculator. 62 times 3 is 186. So I have 186, and I'm adding that to 101.7. 186 plus 101.7 is going to give me 287.7. So that means that in this blank here for number 3, I am typing in 287.7. Okay, and you're going to do the same exact thing for all the rest of these numbers. So you're going to replace that x in our expression here, this number right here. You're going to replace this with each one of these numbers, multiply it, and then add the 2 numbers. Now what this table is going to do is eventually at some point we will get something close to our total. And our total before was this 2,878 miles. Okay, so if we go over that, that's too many days because I don't want to go over it. I want to go just under it. So if I say I get to this 44 and I don't quite hit this yet, make sure you fill out the 45. Okay. 2 says explain the process you used to solve the problem. Okay, so that's saying that you use the expression from part 2 and replaced the values from the table with our variable x. Okay, so that's an example of something you could say. You could also say something along the lines of, I solved the expression using the values from the table. Anything as long as you are essentially describing what you did to solve and fill out the rest of this table. So part 3 says, how is this method similar to the method used in the previous part of the project? So this is comparing it to part 2 where we solve that equation, right? So this is saying, well, with the equation, all I did was solve for one variable versus the table, I solved for multiple numbers. So that's something that you could say, I guess that's a different, I apologize. So use that for part 4 or question 4. So part 4 for different, with the equation, I only solved for one variable, and with the table, I was solving for many different ones. For an example of how they're similar, this could be something like I used the same exact equation and expression to get to my final answer, right? Both of the equations and the expressions that we were using were both the same. Question 5 says, which method seems easier to use? Well, this is up to you. Which one did you like more? Did you like to use the table or did you prefer to use the equation to solve it? Whichever one's easier to you, and just make sure that you also explain why. So say why you think it's easier. Okay, so that is it for this part of the project. Once you've completed all 3 parts, we need to save it. So this is where we go to upload it into the course. So when you go up here to File, okay, once you've completed everything, you're going to go File, and you're going to go to Download. Okay, so File, go to Download, and then here you can see where this says PDF document. That is what you are going to use to upload this. So File, Download, PDF document, okay? And when you click this, it's going to save it into your downloads, okay? It might pop up with the ribbon down here. If it does, that's great. So once we get to here, now is where we go back to the course. All right, so clicking back to our course, this is in Unit 2, okay, so it's in Lesson 8, where it says Project Solve Problems Upload, okay? So we're going to click this. So this is where we're going to be uploading all 3 parts, okay? And it's going to look like this. Up here, it's going to say Submit Assignment, so I'm going to click this. I'm going to choose a file. So when I click choose a file, it automatically opens up my downloads, and I could see right here from today, it says copy of Math 7B project. So if it doesn't pop up, say it pops up with your documents, just go ahead and go to your downloads. Click this 7B, your copy in your PDF. You're going to hit open. It's going to pop up right here. And then you're going to hit submit assignment. Okay. Once you submit your assignment, you are good. You're done with the project. That's the only project for this entire course. So yay. You can do it again if you would like, or retry it once I have graded it. If you missed a few points here and there, that is 100% okay. I'll let you know where you missed your points and if you wanted to redo them after I have graded it. But once you've turned it in, you are good to go. Let me know if you have any questions on any of the questions in part 3 or if you're struggling with uploading it into the course.